Rain hammered the street like bullets. A small girl sprinted through the darkness, her sneakers splashing through puddles that soaked her to the bone. Brake lights glowed red ahead, a black luxury car sliding away from the curb. "Stop." Her voice ripped through the storm. "Please? Someone's dying." Tiny fists pounded against the car's tinted window as it accelerated. She ran harder, lungs burning, tears mixing with rain on her 8-year-old face. The car didn't slow down. She stumbled, fell hard on the wet pavement, skinning both knees. Blood mixed with rainwater. But she pushed herself up and kept running, sobbing now, screaming words that would change 2 lives forever. "Please? You have to follow me." Inside that car sat the most powerful man in the city. A man who never stopped for anyone. A man with a frozen heart who hadn't felt anything in years. Until tonight. 3 hours earlier her world was normal. Now everything had shattered. What could make a child chase down a billionaire through a storm? What desperation burns so hot it melts even ice? The answer would break your heart. The morning had started like every other morning in the tiny apartment above Chen's bakery. Lily woke to the smell of fresh bread rising from downstairs and the sound of her brother moving around their kitchen. Sunlight squeezed through the gap in their second-hand curtains, painting a stripe of gold across her blanket. She sat up, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Their apartment was small. 1 bedroom that Theo insisted she take while he slept on the lumpy couch, a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people, a bathroom with a sink that dripped no matter how tight you turned the handle. The walls were thin. She could hear Mrs. Chin downstairs teaching her grandson how to knead dough, their voices rising through the floorboards in a language Lily didn't understand but found comforting anyway. 2 years. That's how long it had been since the accident. Since the last morning she woke up to her mom's singing and her dad's terrible jokes. Some mornings she still forgot. She'd shuffle out expecting to see them, and then reality would slam into her chest all over again. But Theo was always there. Always. "Morning, Lil." His voice carried from the kitchen, tired but warm. He'd probably been up for hours already. He always was. She padded across the worn carpet, her bare feet cold against the floor. Theo stood at the stove, flipping something in their ancient frying pan. He'd changed out of his overnight security guard uniform into his daytime work clothes. A button-up shirt with a small stain on the collar he tried to hide with his jacket, pants that were getting too short at the ankles. He was 17 but looked older. Worked like someone twice his age. "Pancakes." Her voice came out hopeful. He glanced back at her and his whole face softened. That's what she loved most about Theo. No matter how exhausted he was, he always smiled at her like she was the best thing in his world. "Not quite. Egg sandwiches. But I found jam at the discount store yesterday." He held up a jar like it was treasure. "Strawberry. Your favorite." She climbed onto one of their 2 mismatched chairs, the one that didn't wobble. Their kitchen table was scratched and old, covered with a plastic tablecloth Theo had bought at the dollar store. On it sat a small glass jar half filled with coins. Her secret project. Theo's birthday was in 3 weeks. She'd been saving every penny she could find, coins from under couch cushions, the quarter Mrs. Chin gave her for helping sweep the bakery steps, the $1 her teacher gave her for winning the spelling bee. She was going to buy him something special. She hadn't decided what yet, but it had to be perfect. He deserved perfect. "What are you thinking about so hard over there?" Theo slid a plate in front of her. The egg sandwich looked a little burnt around the edges but she didn't care. "Nothing." She smiled at him. "Just that you're the best brother ever." Something flickered across his face, pride mixed with something that looked like pain. He sat down across from her with his own sandwich, but she noticed he'd given her the bigger half. He always did that. Pretended he wasn't hungry when she knew he was. "Eat up. School starts in 40 minutes. He took a small bite, chewing slowly, making it last. She bit into her sandwich. The egg was slightly rubbery, the bread a day old, but the jam made it sweet. For a moment, sitting there in the sunlight with her brother, everything felt okay. Normal. Like maybe they could actually keep this life they'd built from scraps and hope. "Can you braid my hair?" she asked. Theo's eyes crinkled at the corners. "Come here." She hopped off her chair and settled on the floor between his knees. His hands were gentle as he gathered her hair, his fingers working through the tangles with patience their mother had taught him. She closed her eyes, remembering mornings like this before. Different hands, same love. "Lil." His voice went quiet. "I got a letter yesterday. From social services." Her stomach dropped. Those 3 words, social services, they haunted her nightmares. They want to do another home visit next week. His hands kept braiding, steady despite the tremor she heard in his voice. "But it's fine. Everything's fine. The apartment's clean, I've got pay stubs from all 3 jobs, and Mrs. Chin wrote that letter saying we're good tenants. What if they take me away? The words came out smaller than she meant them to. His hand stilled. Then he turned her around to face him, his eyes fierce. That's not going to happen. You hear me? I'm not letting anyone take you. We're family. We stay together. Promise? Promise? He held out his pinky finger. She wrapped hers around it, holding tight. We'll be okay, Lil. I'll make sure of it. She wanted to believe him. She did believe him. Theo never broke his promises. But she saw things he tried to hide, the eviction warning he'd stuffed in his pocket last week, the way he counted change before buying groceries, how he came home from his overnight shift and went straight to his afternoon job without sleeping. He was drowning, trying to keep both their heads above water. And she was only 8, but she wasn't stupid. She knew they were barely surviving. After breakfast, Theo rushed through getting ready while she packed her backpack. She had homework she'd finished last night, a permission slip for the field trip she knew they couldn't afford, and her lunch, a peanut butter sandwich and an apple Mrs. Chen had slipped her yesterday when Theo wasn't looking. Ready? Theo grabbed his keys, already running late for his morning shift at the warehouse. She nodded, slinging her backpack over her shoulders. They hurried down the narrow stairs, past the bakery where Mrs. Chen waved at them through the window, out onto the street where the city was waking up around them. Theo walked her the 6 blocks to school, the same route every day. He talked about normal things, how the Johnson's cat had gotten stuck in a tree again, how his coworker had told the worst joke yesterday, how maybe next month they could go to the free museum on Community Day. Small talk that made the world feel safer. At the school gate he knelt down, fixing her collar. Have a good day, okay? Be smart, be kind, be brave. The same words every morning. Their father used to say them. I will. She hugged him tight, breathing in the smell of detergent and the cinnamon roll he'd probably bought from the gas station on his way home from his night shift. His only breakfast. I love you, Lil. Love you more. He grinned. Impossible. Then he was standing, ruffling her hair, walking backward so he could wave as long as possible. She waved back until he turned the corner and disappeared. The school day dragged. Math felt endless, reading time too short. During lunch, she sat with her friend Mia, who was telling her about the new puppy her parents had surprised her with last weekend. Lily listened, smiling, ignoring the small ache in her chest. She was happy for Mia. Really. But sometimes it hurt, seeing other kids with both parents, with houses that didn't smell like mold, with birthday parties and new shoes and lives that felt secure. After school, Theo couldn't pick her up. He was at his afternoon job, stocking shelves at the grocery store. So Lily walked herself to the hospital where Mia's older sister worked as a nurse. Mia had been sick lately, some heart thing the doctors were monitoring. Today was her checkup appointment, and Mia had asked if Lily would come for moral support. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and something else, something that made Lily think of the night her parents didn't come home. She pushed the memory down and found Mia in the waiting room with her parents. Lily. Mia's face brightened. She looked pale today, dark circles under her eyes that hadn't been there last week. Hey. Lily sat next to her. How are you feeling? Tired. Mia leaned her head on Lily's shoulder. But happy you're here. They sat together, playing quiet games on Mia's mom's phone, until a nurse called Mia's name. The appointment took forever. Lily waited, reading a book from her backpack, watching people come and go. Families with sick kids, old people in wheelchairs, doctors who walked too fast like they were always running toward the next emergency. After an hour Mia came back out. But something was wrong. Her mom's eyes were red. Her dad kept clearing his throat, that thing grown-ups do when they're trying not to cry. Lily, sweetie. Mia's mom knelt down. Thank you for being such a good friend. We need to talk to the doctor some more. Can you wait here a little longer? Is Mia okay? Mia's mom's smile wobbled. We're going to do everything we can to make sure she is. That wasn't a yes. They disappeared into a consultation room, leaving Lily alone in the waiting area. She tried to read her book but the words blurred together. Something was really wrong. She could feel it in the air, heavy and thick like the humidity before a storm. Time crawled. She counted the tiles on the floor. 47 in her section. She watched a little boy cry as a nurse gave him a shot. She saw an old woman holding her husband's hand so tight her knuckles went white. Then she heard voices. Adult voices that forgot kids could hear. 2 doctors stood near the hallway just around the corner from where she sat. Their voices carried. The family can't afford it. A woman's voice, frustrated. Insurance denied the claim. Without the surgery in the next 48 hours. There has to be something we can do. A man's voice, angry. She's 8 years old. I know. But the surgery costs over $200,000. They're immigrants barely making ends meet. They don't have it. And we can't operate without payment authorization. Lily's blood went cold. They were talking about Mia. Mia needed surgery. Expensive surgery. Or else. The doctors walked away, their voices fading. Lily sat frozen, her mind racing. $200,000. That was more money than she could even imagine. More money than she'd ever seen. How were pennies in a jar supposed to help? But she had to do something. Mia was her best friend. The girl who'd shared her lunch when Lily forgot hers. Who'd defended her when kids made fun of her worn-out shoes. Who'd never treated her differently after her parents died. Think, Lily. Think. And then she remembered. Last week, Theo had been watching the news while he ironed his work shirt. A story about a billionaire donating money to the children's hospital. What was his name? Damon something. Damon Pierce. The reporter called him the youngest billionaire in the city, and said he'd pledged $5 million to build a new wing. $5 million. If he had that much to give away, maybe he'd help Mia. It was a long shot. A crazy long shot. But what else could she do? She grabbed her backpack and slipped out of the waiting room while no one was looking. Her heart pounded as she walked through the hospital corridors, past nurses too busy to notice, past families wrapped up in their own emergencies. She found an exit that led to a side street, pushed through the door and stepped into the late afternoon air. Theo would be furious if he knew she'd left. But this was for Mia. For her friend who might die without help. She had to find Damon Pierce. Across the city, in a penthouse suite that cost more per month than most people earned in a year, Damon Pierce stood at his floor-to-ceiling window and stared at nothing. The view was breathtaking. The city spread below him like a kingdom of glass and steel and light. He owned pieces of it. Buildings with his name on them, companies that answered to him, people whose livelihoods depended on his decisions. At 32 he built an empire from nothing. Ruthless they called him. Brilliant. Unstoppable. Empty. He turned away from the window, adjusting the cufflinks on his custom-tailored shirt. Tonight was the charity gala at the Grand Hotel. Another performance. Another night of shaking hands with people who wanted something from him, smiling at cameras that would plaster his face across business magazines with headlines like, "The Ice King of Industry," or "Billionaire Bachelor Breaks Another Record." They didn't know the half of it. His assistant, Marcus, knocked on the open door. "Car's ready whenever you are, Mr. Pierce. Gala starts in an hour." Damon glanced at him. Marcus was efficient, professional, and smart enough to never ask personal questions. Perfect employee. The hospital donation paperwork? Signed and processed. $5 million to the children's wing as promised. PR team says it'll hit the news cycle tomorrow morning. Marcus hesitated. "They're calling you a philanthropist. It's a tax write-off." Damon's voice was flat. "Nothing more." "Of course, sir." But they both knew that wasn't entirely true. Damon's accountant had suggested a dozen better tax strategies. He'd chosen the hospital donation for reasons he refused to examine too closely. Children's hospital. Children who needed help he could give with pocket change. Children whose parents were probably desperate, clinging to hope. Children like... He shut that thought down hard. "I'll be down in 10 minutes. He dismissed Marcus with a nod. Alone again, Damon walked to his home office. On his desk sat a single framed photo, face down. He'd knocked it over months ago and never bothered to stand it back up. Looking at it hurt. Not looking at it hurt more. He had 12 minutes before he needed to leave. He spent them the same way he spent every spare moment. Working. Emails, spreadsheets, acquisition proposals. Numbers and strategies that made sense, unlike the mess of human emotions he'd learned to bury deep. His phone buzzed. A text from the event coordinator. "Security's tight tonight. Mayor's attending. Just a heads up." Damon didn't bother responding. He pocketed his phone, grabbed his jacket, and headed to the elevator. The ride down from the 40th floor was silent except for the soft mechanical hum. His reflection stared back at him from the polished doors, cold eyes, sharp jawline, expression that gave nothing away. The Ice King. They had no idea how accurate that nickname was. The lobby of his building was marble and modern art and uncomfortable furniture meant to impress, not comfort. His driver waited at the curb in the black town car. Damon slid into the back seat and they pulled into traffic without a word. The drive to the Grand Hotel took 20 minutes. Damon spent them reviewing notes on his phone, preparing for the conversations he'd need to have. Senator Williams wanted to discuss his infrastructure bill. The hospital board director would want a photo op. 3 different CEOs would try to pitch partnerships. All of them would pretend they cared about charity when really they cared about access. Just like him, really. He wasn't attending because he gave a damn about the cause. He was attending because presence meant power and power meant control. The car pulled up to the hotel's grand entrance. Camera flashes immediately exploded. Reporters shouted questions he didn't bother answering. He stepped out, buttoned his jacket, and walked through the chaos with practiced indifference. Inside, the hotel lobby had been transformed. Crystal chandeliers, servers in bow ties carrying champagne, string quartet playing something forgettable in the corner. People in expensive clothes pretending their donations tonight would absolve them of whatever sins kept them up at night. Mr. Pierce. The event coordinator rushed over, a woman in her 50s with too much enthusiasm. So wonderful you could make it. The hospital board is thrilled about your generous donation. Where do you need me? Cut through the pleasantries. Always more efficient. She walked him through the evening schedule. Cocktail hour now, dinner at 7, speeches at 8. His speech was scheduled for 8:15. 5 minutes, pre-written by his PR team, designed to make him sound human. He moved through the room, shaking hands, nodding at conversations he wasn't listening to. A senator talked about policy. A board member talked about impact. A woman whose name he'd already forgotten touched his arm and laughed at something he hadn't meant as a joke. Then he saw it. Near the coat check, taped to the wall, a child's drawing. Crayon and construction paper. A stick figure family, mom, dad, 2 kids, a dog. Hearts floating around them. The kind of picture every child draws, innocent and simple. His chest tightened. His hand, holding a champagne flute he hadn't touched, began to shake. Before he could think, he was moving. Across the lobby, past confused attendees, straight to that drawing. His fingers closed around it, crushing the paper. He turned, walked to the nearest trash bin and shoved it deep inside. His heart hammered. His breath came too fast. The edges of his vision darkened. Sir? A server approached, concerned. Are you all right? Fine. The word came out sharp. He straightened, forced his face back into that cold mask, and walked away before anyone else could see the cracks. He found a quiet hallway, leaned against the wall, and pressed his palms against his eyes. Breathe. Just breathe. It was just a drawing. Just a stupid kid's drawing that meant nothing. Except it meant everything. 24 years ago, his little sister had drawn pictures just like that. Stick figures of their family. Hearts and smiles. She taped them all over their tiny apartment, proud of her artwork, desperate for approval. He told her they were dumb. He was 8, too cool for his baby sister's crayon scribbles. He'd laughed when she cried. 3 days later she was gone. The fever had come on fast. Too fast. Their parents were working double shifts, couldn't afford to miss a day. By the time they realized how sick she was, it was too late. Meningitis, the doctors said at the hospital. If they'd brought her in sooner? The cruelest word in any language. She died holding one of her drawings. A picture of their family, everyone smiling. He kept it for years. Until the day he couldn't look at it anymore and burned it in the sink of his first apartment. Watched the paper curl and blacken and turn to ash. Just like his ability to feel anything had burned away with it. Damon pushed off the wall, straightened his jacket, and walked back toward the gala. He had a speech to give. Money to donate. A role to play. The Ice King doesn't feel. The Ice King doesn't break. The Ice King survives. But something had shifted tonight. That drawing had cracked something inside him he'd thought was sealed forever. And he hated it. Hated the weakness, the memory, the pain that refused to stay buried. The evening crawled forward. He gave his speech, perfect delivery, zero emotion, thunderous applause. He smiled for photos, signed a giant ceremonial check, listened to the hospital director thank him for his compassion and generosity. Was all of it. He had no compassion. Just guilt he buried under money and success. By 9:30 he'd fulfilled his obligations. He found Marcus near the exit. I'm leaving. Of course, sir. Car's waiting. They walked through the lobby. The gala continued behind them, music and laughter and the clink of champagne glasses. Damon stepped outside into the evening air. It had started raining, light drops that darkened the pavement and made the streetlights blur. His driver opened the rear door. Damon slid inside, grateful for the silence and tinted windows that hid him from the world. Home, sir? Yes. The car pulled away from the curb, tires hissing on wet asphalt. Damon leaned back, closed his eyes. Another evening performed. Another mask maintained. Tomorrow he'd wake up and do it again. And again. Forever, probably. This was his life. Empty success and buried pain and absolutely nothing that meant anything. Then he heard it. A voice. Small and desperate, cutting through the rain and the purr of the engine. Stop. Please. His eyes snapped open. Through the rain-streaked window he saw her, a little girl soaked through running after the car. Her face was twisted in anguish, tears streaming, mouth open in a scream that tore at something deep in his chest. Keep driving, he heard himself say. Instinct. Self-preservation. Don't get involved. But the girl kept running. Kept screaming. Please? Someone's dying. You have to follow me. His driver glanced in the rearview mirror. Sir, should I? I said keep driving. They accelerated. The girl stumbled, fell hard on the wet pavement. But she got back up. Blood on her knees, rain in her eyes, and she kept chasing them with a determination that was either insane or heroic. Damon watched her through the rear window. 8 years old maybe. Dark hair plastered to her head. Clothes that were worn and wet. Running after a car she'd never catch for a reason he didn't know, with a desperation that looked like the end of the world. And suddenly he wasn't looking at a stranger. He was looking at himself at 8 years old, chasing after an ambulance he couldn't catch, screaming for his sister who couldn't hear him anymore. Stop the car. His driver hesitated. Sir? I said stop the damn car. The brakes engaged. The car slid to a halt at the curb. Damon sat frozen, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it over the rain. What was he doing? This was insane. He didn't stop for anyone. He didn't get involved. He'd built his entire life on walls that kept the world out. But he was already reaching for the door handle. He stepped out into the rain. The cold shocked his system, soaking through his expensive suit in seconds. The girl had collapsed on the sidewalk 10 feet away, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. Damon walked toward her. His shoes splashed through puddles. His carefully styled hair dripped water into his eyes. He looked ridiculous probably. A billionaire standing in the rain, staring at a crying child. He knelt down. Water soaked through his pants. She looked up at him and their eyes met. Hers were dark brown. Filled with tears and terror and hope so fragile it could shatter with a breath. In them he saw every desperate prayer he'd ever screamed at an uncaring universe. Every plea that went unanswered. Every moment he'd begged for someone, anyone, to help. And for the first time in 24 years, the ice around Damon Pierce's heart cracked wide open. Where do you need me to go? The rain had slowed to a drizzle by the time they reached the hospital. Lily's hand was small and cold in Damon's palm, her fingers trembling as she pulled him through the automatic doors. His security team followed at a distance, bewildered. In 15 years of working for Damon Pierce, they'd never seen him hold anyone's hand. Never seen him run through rain for a stranger. Never seen that look on his face, half terror, half something that might have been hope. Lily's sneakers squeaked on the polished hospital floor as she led him down corridor after corridor. She didn't let go. Kept glancing back like she feared he'd disappear if she blinked. She's in room 304, Lily gasped between breaths. Her name's Mia. We're best friends. The doctor said she needs surgery but her parents can't pay and insurance said no and she's gonna die if someone doesn't help and I remembered the news said you gave money to hospitals and I thought maybe, her voice cracked. Fresh tears spilled down her already wet cheeks. Damon's chest constricted. This child had chased him through a storm because she'd seen him on television once. Had believed, with the pure faith only children possess, that a stranger would save her friend's life. What kind of world did she live in where that was her only option? They reached room 304. Through the small window in the door, Damon saw a little girl in a hospital bed, wires and tubes connecting her to machines that beeped rhythmic warnings. Her skin had a grayish tint. Her parents sat on either side, holding her hands, their faces carved with the kind of exhaustion that comes from days without sleep and hope running dry. Lily pushed open the door. Mia. I brought help. 3 pairs of eyes turned toward them. Mia's lit up weakly. Her parents filled with confusion that shifted to recognition when they saw Damon's face. Mr. Pierce? Mia's father stood, his accent thick, his work-worn hands clenching nervously. I don't understand. Why are you? Your daughter needs surgery. Damon's voice came out rougher than intended. He cleared his throat. How much? Mia's mother stood too, wringing her hands. We couldn't possibly ask you to. How much? The parents exchanged glances. The father swallowed hard. $217,000. But our insurance denied the claim and we've tried everything. We've called everyone. We have maybe 15,000 saved, but that's not even close, and the doctors say without the surgery in the next 48 hours. His voice broke. Damon pulled out his phone. His assistant answered on the first ring. Marcus, I need you to contact St. Mary's Hospital Administration immediately. Patient name is. He looked at the parents. Mia Torres, the mother whispered. Mia Torres, room 304. Cardiac surgery, time sensitive. Funded completely. Full amount, all associated costs, postoperative care, everything. Use my personal account, not company funds. I want it processed within the hour. Silence on the other end. Then, sir, are you certain? Did I stutter? No, sir. I'll handle it immediately. Damon ended the call and looked at Mia's parents. Their faces had gone pale with shock. I don't understand, the father said. Why would you do this? You don't even know us. Because a little girl ran through rain believing I was better than I am. Because I've spent 24 years running from guilt and maybe this is the universe giving me one chance to do something right. Consider it handled, was all Damon said. Mia's mother burst into tears. She covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. Her husband wrapped his arms around her, his own eyes wet. They stood there holding each other, breaking apart with relief. Lily rushed to Mia's bedside. She grabbed her friend's hand, squeezing tight. See? I told you. I told you someone would help. Mia smiled, weak but genuine. Her fingers tightened around Lily's. You saved me, she whispered. Damon stood apart, watching. Something inside his chest, that frozen dead thing he'd carried for decades, shifted. Crack. Warmth leaked through fissures he thought were permanently sealed. This feeling. He'd almost forgotten it existed. The satisfaction of helping someone who needed it. The rightness of using power for something other than profit. The way Lily looked at him now, like he was a hero instead of a monster. He wasn't a hero. Far from it. But maybe just for this moment he could pretend. A doctor entered, glancing at his tablet with barely concealed surprise. Mr. and Mrs. Torres? I've just received authorization for Mia's surgery. Full funding approved. We can schedule for tomorrow morning. More tears. More thank yous directed at Damon that he didn't deserve. He nodded stiffly, uncomfortable with gratitude, with being seen as good when he knew what he really was. Lily tugged his hand. Can we talk outside? They stepped into the hallway. Hospital sounds surrounded them, beeping machines, hushed conversations, the squeak of nurses' shoes on linoleum. Lily looked up at him with those dark eyes that saw too much. Thank you, she said simply. You're a really good person. No, I'm not. If you knew what I've done you'd never say that. Where's your brother? He asked instead. Does he know you're here? Lily's face fell. He's at work. I was supposed to wait in the waiting room but then I heard the doctors talking and I got scared and I ran and... Her voice went small. He's gonna be so mad at me. What's his name? Theo. He's 17. He takes care of me since our parents died. She said it matter-of-factly, the way kids do when tragedy is just part of their story now. How did they die? The question came out before Damon could stop it. Construction accident. 2 years ago. They were working at this big building downtown and something fell and... She trailed off looking at her shoes. Social services wants to take me away from Theo. They keep saying he's too young to be my guardian. But he's the best guardian ever. He works 3 jobs and makes me breakfast and braids my hair and promised we'd stay together. Guilt settled in Damon's stomach, heavy as lead. Which building? I don't remember the name. It had a big P on it, I think. Theo doesn't like to talk about it. A big P, Pierce Industries. His company. His construction site. No, it couldn't be. There'd been dozens of sites 2 years ago. It didn't mean. But he knew. Deep in his bones he knew. What were their names? Your parents. Isabel and Carlos Reyes. The names hit him like bullets. Isabel and Carlos Reyes. He remembered now. The incident report he'd skimmed and dismissed. Faulty scaffolding. OSHA investigation pending. His legal team had advised settling quickly and quietly to avoid publicity. He'd approved it without a second thought. $15,000 to the family. A pittance. A rounding error in his quarterly budget. He'd signed off on cutting safety inspection costs that quarter to boost profit margins. More money for shareholders. More proof of his ruthless efficiency. And 2 people had died because of it. This little girl in front of him, this bright, brave, beautiful child, was an orphan because of his greed. Mr. Pierce? Lily's voice pulled him back. Are you okay? You look sick. He forced his face into neutrality. I'm fine. We should get you back to your brother. He's gonna kill me for running off. Then I'll explain it was my fault. Lily smiled at him, trusting and sweet. That smile carved into his chest like a knife. He pulled out his phone, handed it to her. Call him. Tell him where you are. She dialed with careful concentration, held the phone to her ear. Seconds passed. Then, Theo? Don't be mad, but... She winced, holding the phone away from her ear. Even Damon could hear the shouting. When the shouting stopped, she spoke quickly. I'm at the hospital still. I'm okay. I'm with Mr. Pierce. He's the billionaire from TV. He helped me out. He's gonna bring me home. Please don't be mad. Pause. Okay. I love you too. She handed the phone back. He's coming to get me. He sounds really mad. Where should I take you? She rattled off an address. Damon recognized the neighborhood. Lower income, high crime rates, the kind of place where hope went to die. They left the hospital. His car was still parked at the curb, driver waiting patiently in the rain. Damon opened the door for Lily. She climbed in, tiny in the leather seat that cost more than her brother probably made in a month. The drive took 15 minutes. Lily chattered nervously the whole time, filling silence with words about school and friends and how Theo was teaching her to cook. Damon listened, tracking every detail, memorizing the shape of her life. This child whose parents he'd killed. They pulled up to a narrow building squeezed between a laundromat and a bodega. The bakery on the ground floor was closed for the night, but lights glowed in the apartment windows above. A young man stood on the sidewalk, pacing, soaked through despite the rain having stopped. Theo. He looked exactly how Damon had at 17, exhausted, desperate, carrying weight no teenager should have to bear. But where Damon had responded to pressure by turning cold and ruthless, Theo had somehow stayed soft enough to braid his sister's hair. The car stopped. Lily scrambled out before Damon could open her door. Theo. Theo caught her in a hug that lifted her off her feet. What were you thinking? You can't just run off like that. Do you have any idea how scared I was? I'm sorry. But Mia needed help and... I don't care. You could have been hurt. You could have been taken. You could have... His voice cracked. He buried his face in her wet hair, holding on like she might vanish. Damon stepped out of the car. Theo's eyes snapped to him, narrowing with suspicion and something that might have been recognition. You're Damon Pierce. Not a question. An accusation. I am. Why is my 8-year-old sister in your car? She needed help for her friend. I provided it. Damon kept his voice neutral. She's safe. Unharmed. I was bringing her home. Theo set Lily down but kept a protective hand on her shoulder. His eyes swept over Damon, taking in the expensive suit, the watch that cost more than 6 months of rent, the car that screamed wealth and privilege. Thank you for helping Mia's family, Theo said stiffly. But we don't need anything from you. Pride. Damon recognized it because he'd worn it like armor too. The desperate need to prove you don't need help even when you're drowning. He glanced at the building behind Theo. Even in the dark he could see the disrepair. Cracked windows, peeling paint, a front door that didn't sit quite right in its frame. His eyes caught on a piece of paper taped to the door. Eviction notice. Final warning. 30 days. Theo followed his gaze and flushed with shame. That's none of your business. How much do you owe? I said it's none of your... How much? Theo's jaw clenched. 3 months back rent. $4,000. But I'll figure it out. I always do. Was. The desperation in his eyes said he had no idea how he'd figure it out. Damon made a decision. Impulsive. Reckless. Completely unlike him. Come work for me. Silence. Theo stared. Lily's eyes went wide. What? Theo finally said. Pierce Industries. I need someone in operations management. Starting salary is $90,000 a year, full benefits, health insurance, retirement matching. You start Monday. You don't even know if I'm qualified. Are you smart? Yes. Are you willing to work hard? I work 3 jobs. Hard isn't the problem. Then you're qualified. Damon pulled a business card from his wallet, held it out. Monday, 9 a.m. Ask for Marcus Chin. He'll handle the paperwork. Theo didn't take the card. Why would you do this? You don't know us. Because I killed your parents. Because your sister's orphan status is my fault. Because I can't undo what I did, but maybe I can keep you both from drowning the way I nearly drowned after I lost my sister. Consider it my civic duty, Damon said instead. We don't need charity. It's not charity. It's a job. You'll work. You'll earn every dollar. But you'll also have stability. Insurance. A future. He paused, letting the weight sink in. Social services will have a much harder time taking Lily if you have a stable, well-paying job. That hit home. Theo's expression shifted from suspicious to desperate to conflicted in 3 seconds flat. What's the catch? He asked quietly. No catch. Show up. Work hard. Don't make me regret it. Theo looked down at Lily. She gazed up at him with those big eyes, silently pleading. She wanted this. Wanted her brother to stop drowning. Wanted their family to survive. Slowly, reluctantly, Theo reached out and took the card. I'll think about it, he said. Damon nodded. That's all I ask. He turned to leave, but Lily's voice stopped him. Mr. Pierce? Will we see you again? You should say no. Should walk away. Get in his car and never look back. These people were a complication he didn't need. A reminder of guilt he couldn't afford. But when he looked at Lily, at this small, brave girl who'd chased him through a storm because she believed he was good, he couldn't make himself disappear from her life. Maybe, he said softly. Then he got in his car and drove away. The following morning, Damon sat in his office on the 40th floor, staring at files his assistant had compiled overnight. Marcus had been thorough. The construction accident report from 2 years ago. OSHA violations. Internal memos recommending safety budget increases that Damon had rejected. The settlement paid to the Reyes family, $15,000 split between funeral costs and a trust fund for the children. $15,000. He'd spent more than that on his watch. Sir? Marcus stood in the doorway. Your 9 o'clock is here. Cancel it. I really think you should. I said cancel it. Damon's voice came out harsher than intended. He took a breath. I need you to pull all sealed records on the Reyes accident. Everything. I want to know who else knew about the safety violations. Marcus hesitated. Sir, digging into sealed records could open you up to liability. If there's evidence of negligence. I know what I'm asking. Do it anyway. May I ask why? Damon looked at him. Marcus had worked for him for 8 years. Had never questioned orders. Deserved some honesty. Because the right thing isn't always the smart thing, Damon said quietly. And I've been smart for too long. Marcus nodded slowly. I'll have the files by end of day. After he left, Damon stood at his window looking out at the city. Somewhere down there, Theo was deciding whether to show up Monday. Whether to trust the man who'd killed his parents without even knowing their names. The intercom buzzed. Sir, there's a Victoria Kane on line 2. She says it's urgent. Damon's blood went cold. Victoria Kane. He hadn't heard that name in 5 years. Not since he'd systematically destroyed her father's company and bought the pieces for pennies on the dollar. He picked up the phone. Victoria. Damon. Her voice was silk over razors. It's been a while. What do you want? I wanted to congratulate you on your charity work. Very moving, saving that little girl's friend. The news is calling you a hero. Warning bells screamed in his head. How did you know about that? I make it my business to know things about you. For instance, I know about the construction accident 2 years ago. The one involving Isabel and Carlos Reyes. I know about the safety violations you ignored. I know about the cover-up. Pause. And I know you've just hired their son. His grip on the phone tightened. What do you want, Victoria? Justice. You destroyed my father. Drove him to bankruptcy and an early grave. I've spent 5 years gathering evidence against you. And now, finally, I have everything I need. Her voice turned vicious. I'm going to expose you, Damon. I'm going to show the world who you really are. And I'm going to use that boy and his sister to do it. Leave them out of this. Oh, I don't think I will. In fact, I think Theo deserves to know the truth about his generous new employer. Don't you? The line went dead. Damon stood frozen, phone still pressed to his ear. Victoria Kane was going to tell Theo. Was going to destroy the fragile trust before it even formed. Was going to use his guilt as a weapon. And there wasn't a damn thing he could do to stop her. Monday morning, Theo showed up. Damon watched from his office window as the teenager walked through the lobby, wearing a suit that was too big in the shoulders and too short in the sleeves. Probably borrowed. But his head was high, his shoulders back. Proud even in desperation. Marcus called up. Theodore Reyes is here for orientation. Send him up. 5 minutes later, Theo stood in his office, looking around with barely concealed awe. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Furniture that cost more than most people's cars. Art on the walls that could feed a family for years. Have a seat, Damon said. Theo sat on the edge of the leather chair, uncomfortable. I didn't think I'd actually come. What changed your mind? Lily. She wouldn't stop talking about you. About how you're a good person who helps people. He met Damon's eyes. I don't trust you. I don't know why you're doing this, but I'm out of options. So I'm here. Honesty. Damon could respect that. Fair enough. Marcus will handle your paperwork and show you to your department. Work hard. That's all I ask. Theo nodded and stood to leave. At the door he paused. My parents died at one of your construction sites. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken questions. I know, Damon said quietly. Did you know them? No. Do you remember the accident? This was the moment. Tell the truth or lie. Confess or hide. Damon chose the coward's path. There are many accidents across many sites. I can't remember them all. Theo studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Yeah, I figured. He walked out. Damon sat alone in his office, hating himself. The weeks that followed developed a strange rhythm. Theo excelled at work, quick learner, natural problem solver, the kind of employee Damon would have promoted rapidly under normal circumstances. But these weren't normal circumstances. Every day Theo showed up, Damon's guilt grew heavier. And then there was Lily. She started showing up at his building after school, claiming she was waiting for Theo to finish work. Security would call up and Damon would tell them to send her away. But somehow she always ended up in his office anyway. I drew you a picture, she'd announce, presenting crayon drawings of stick figures and hearts. He'd thank her formally and set them aside. She'd put them back on his desk. You have to keep them somewhere you can see them, she'd insist. That's what friends do. Friends? When had they become friends? She'd talk while he worked, telling him about school and books and the chess set Theo had found at a thrift store. Do you know how to play chess? She'd ask. And despite his better judgment, he'd teach her. Gradually, impossibly, his frozen heart began to thaw. One evening, Lily mentioned her school was doing a play. I'm a tree, she said proudly. I have 3 whole lines. That's nice, Damon said, not looking up from his computer. Theo has to work that night. He felt really bad, but he can't miss his shift. She paused. Will you come? I'm very busy. Please? I've never had anyone in the audience before except Theo. You should say no. Should maintain distance. Should remember that getting close to this child would only make everything worse when the truth came out. But he looked at her hopeful face and heard himself say, what time? Her smile could have lit the whole city. The night of the play, Damon sat in an elementary school auditorium surrounded by parents and grandparents. The seats were uncomfortable. The acoustics were terrible. The production value was non-existent. When Lily came on stage in her tree costume, she scanned the audience. Her eyes found him. Her whole face lit up. She delivered her 3 lines with absolute conviction. Damon found himself smiling, then laughing when she waved at him mid-scene. By the end his eyes were wet. This feeling. This overwhelming, terrifying warmth. He'd felt it once before, 24 years ago, watching his little sister perform in her school play. She'd been a flower. Had forgotten her lines and made up new ones instead. Her name had been Lily too. After the play, Lily ran to him, still in costume. You came. You really came. You were excellent, he said and meant it. She hugged him. Without thinking he hugged back. This was dangerous. This attachment, this feeling, this hope that maybe he could be part of something good. Because Victoria Kane was out there, waiting. And when she struck, all of this would shatter. But for one night, holding this brave little girl who reminded him so much of the sister he'd failed to save, Damon let himself pretend he deserved happiness. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. Theo's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. We need to talk. Now. Damon's blood went cold. Where are you? Your office. I'm in the lobby. Your security won't let me up. Send him up, Damon told his assistant. 3 minutes later, his office door slammed open. Theo stood there, holding a manila envelope, his face twisted with betrayal and fury. You knew, he said, voice shaking. You knew the whole time. Victoria had made her move. Theo. Don't. He threw the envelope on Damon's desk. Paper spilled out. Internal memos. OSHA reports. Settlement documents. All of it damning. All of it true. She came to my work. Showed me everything. The safety violations you ignored. The budget cuts that killed my parents. The cover-up. His voice cracked. You killed them. And then you pretended to be some kind of savior. I didn't know it was your parents when I helped Lily. But you figured it out. You knew and you said nothing. You let me work for you. Let Lily trust you. Let us think you were. He couldn't finish. Tears streamed down his face. Damon stood slowly. You're right. I knew. I should have told you. Why didn't you? Because I'm a coward. The truth, finally. Because I wanted to believe I could make it right without facing what I'd done. Because your sister looked at me like I was a good person and I wanted to be that person just for a while. You're not good. You're a murderer. The word hit like a physical blow. But Damon didn't flinch from it. Yes. Theo stared at him. That's it? That's all you have to say? I can't bring them back. I can't undo what I did. But I can spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. Make it right? You think money makes it right? You think a job makes us even? Theo's voice rose. They were my parents. Lily's parents. They were people, not a line item in your budget. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you're just another rich man who thinks he can buy his way out of consequences. You're right about that too. Damon's voice went quiet. But the job, the money, it was never about buying forgiveness. It was about keeping you and Lily together. About giving you the stability social services requires. About your guilt. This was always about making yourself feel better. Was it? Damon didn't even know anymore. His motivations had become tangled, confused. What started as guilt had become something else. Something that looked like genuine care. The office door opened. Lily stood there, her backpack still on, her face confused. Theo? Why are you yelling? What's wrong? She looked between them, her brother's tear-stained face, the papers scattered across the desk, the tension thick enough to choke on. Lily, go wait downstairs, Theo said. But now. She flinched. Theo never yelled at her. Never. What's happening? Her voice was small, scared. Why are you fighting? Theo's expression crumbled. He looked at Damon with pure anguish. Tell her. You owe us that much. Tell her what you did. Damon looked at Lily. This brave, bright child who chased him through a storm. Who drew him pictures. Who hugged him like family. Who was about to learn her hero was actually her parents' killer. Lily, his voice failed. He tried again. Your parents' accident. At the construction site. It was my company. My decisions that. Understanding bloomed in her eyes. Horror followed. You? The word came out broken. You're why they died? He nodded. Couldn't speak past the lump in his throat. Her face crumpled. Tears spilled over. But you were supposed to be good. You saved Mia. You helped us. You came to my play. Each word was an accusation. A betrayal. I'm sorry. The words were pathetically inadequate. I'm so sorry. Lily turned and ran. Theo chased after her. Damon stood alone in his office, surrounded by the evidence of his sins, and finally let himself break. Tomorrow Victoria's press conference would expose everything. His company would face lawsuits. His reputation would be destroyed. He'd lose everything he'd built. And he deserved every bit of it. But the thing that hurt most wasn't the coming destruction. It was the look on Lily's face when she realized the person she trusted was the reason she'd cried herself to sleep for 2 years. That pain would haunt him forever. Exactly as it should. The apartment above the bakery felt smaller than usual. Theo sat on the worn couch, Lily curled beside him in silence. She hadn't spoken since they left Damon's office. Hadn't cried either. Just stared at nothing with eyes too old for her 8 years. Outside, the city hummed with evening traffic. Mrs. Chen's grandson practiced violin downstairs, the notes drifting up through the floorboards. Normal sounds. But nothing felt normal anymore. Lil. Theo's voice was gentle. We need to talk about what happened. She didn't look at him. He killed Mom and Dad. The words hung in the air, stark and undeniable. It's more complicated than that, Theo said carefully. How did you explain corporate negligence to a child? How did you make sense of something that didn't make sense? Mr. Pierce made bad decisions. Really bad ones. He cared more about money than people's safety, and because of that, Mom and Dad got hurt. So he did kill them. In a way, yes. Theo pulled her closer. She stayed stiff against him. But he didn't mean to. He didn't wake up that day planning to hurt anyone. He just made terrible choices. And people died because of it. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then, does he love us now? The question caught Theo off guard. He'd expected anger, accusations, demands for revenge. Not this. What? Mr. Pierce. Does he love us? Even though he killed them? Her voice was small, confused. Because he acted like he did. He saved Mia. He gave you a job. He came to my play. She finally looked up at Theo, tears gathering. Was all of that fake? Theo thought about the past weeks. Damon's face when he watched Lily perform. The way his voice softened when he spoke to her. The genuine guilt that had broken through when confronted. The man was capable of terrible things, yes. But the care he'd shown, that had been real. No, Theo said quietly. I think he really does care about us. Which makes this whole thing more confusing. Can you love someone who hurt you? God, when had his baby sister gotten so insightful? I don't know, Lil. I really don't know. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Theodore Reyes? A woman's voice, smooth and cold. Who is this? Victoria Kane. We met briefly today. I'm the one who showed you the truth about your generous employer. Pause. I'm holding a press conference tomorrow morning. 10 a.m. I'd like you to be there. Theo's stomach dropped. Why? To tell your story. To show the world what Damon Pierce really is. You deserve justice, don't you think? Your parents deserve to be remembered as more than a line item in a settlement agreement. Something in her tone felt wrong. Too eager. Too calculated. What's in it for you? He asked. Does it matter? Damon Pierce destroyed my family. Now he's trying to buy absolution with yours. Don't you want people to know the truth? The truth is already out. You made sure of that. But imagine the impact if you stood beside me. The orphan son exploited by the very man who killed his parents. Taking blood money while Damon plays the hero. Her voice hardened. If you don't show up, I'll make sure everyone knows you're complicit. That you chose money over justice. The line went dead. Theo sat frozen, phone still pressed to his ear. Blood money. Was that what his salary was? Payment for his silence? Had he sold his parents' memory for stability? Who was that? Lily asked. Nobody. Just, he stopped. Looked at her. She deserved honesty. That was the woman who told me about Mr. Pierce. She wants me to speak at a press conference tomorrow. To tell everyone what he did. Lily's expression shifted, thinking hard. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. Theo? Her voice went even smaller. What's justice? He blinked. What? Everyone keeps saying justice. The lady on the phone said it. You've said it. But what does it mean? Is it making Mr. Pierce feel as bad as we feel? Is it punishing him? Is it? She trailed off, struggling with concepts too big for her vocabulary. Is it making sure he never forgets what he did wrong? Theo had no answer. He'd spent the past hours consumed by rage and betrayal, but he hadn't actually stopped to consider what he wanted. What would justice look like? Damon's company destroyed? Prison time? Public humiliation? Would any of that bring his parents back? I think, he said slowly, justice means making sure what happened to Mom and Dad never happens to anyone else. Lily nodded thoughtfully. Then she yawned, exhaustion catching up with her. Bedtime, Theo said. We'll figure this out tomorrow. He tucked her into bed, kissed her forehead and returned to the couch. Sleep wouldn't come. His mind spun with impossible choices, with the weight of decisions that would shape their future. Around midnight he heard Lily's bedroom door creak open. Footsteps crossed the apartment. The front door opened quietly. He was up in an instant. Lily. But she was already gone. Lily ran through the night streets, her heart pounding. She knew this was dangerous. Knew Theo would be furious. But she had to see him. Had to know if the man who'd saved Mia and came to her play was real, or if it had all been guilt masquerading as care. She remembered the address from the business cards on Theo's desk. The fancy building where Mr. Pierce lived. It took her 20 minutes to get there, running the whole way. The doorman recognized her. Miss Lily? It's very late. Does your brother know you're here? I need to see Mr. Pierce. Please. It's important. The doorman hesitated, then made a call. Minutes later, he nodded her toward the elevator. Penthouse. 40th floor. The elevator ride felt endless. When the doors opened, she stepped into a hallway that led to a single door. It was already open. Damon stood there looking worse than she'd ever seen him. His tie was gone, shirt wrinkled, eyes red. Lily. His voice cracked. You shouldn't be here. I needed to talk to you. He stepped aside, let her in. His apartment was huge, bigger than her entire building probably. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city lights spread below like stars. But it felt empty. Cold. Despite all the expensive furniture, it didn't feel like a home. Damon led her to a sitting area. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Lily noticed the photo frame on the side table. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, grinning at the camera with missing front teeth. Who's that? She asked. Damon's face crumpled. My sister. Her name was Lily too. Was. She died. When I was 8. She was 4. He picked up the frame with shaking hands. She got sick. Meningitis. Our parents were working. We didn't have much money, couldn't afford to miss shifts. By the time they realized how serious it was. He couldn't finish. Lily moved closer, looking at the photo. The little girl looked happy. Love. What was she like? Annoying. Sweet. She followed me everywhere, wanted to do everything I did. She'd draw these pictures of our family and tape them all over our apartment. I told her they were dumb. His voice broke. 3 days before she died, I told her that her drawings were stupid and I didn't want to see them anymore. She cried. And I didn't apologize because I was 8 and stupid and didn't know. He stopped, pressing his palms against his eyes. Theo says you made a bad choice, Lily said quietly. About the construction site. About my parents. I made a lot of bad choices. But you made good choices after. You saved Mia. You helped Theo. You came to my play even though you were busy. That doesn't make up for what I did. No, she agreed. But it means you're not all bad. Just hurt. Like me and Theo. She thought about her question from earlier. About justice and forgiveness and what any of it meant. You can't save yesterday. Can't bring back your sister or my parents. But you saved Mia. You saved us from being split up. That counts for something. Damon looked at her, this small wise creature who understood things most adults couldn't grasp. You should hate me. Maybe I should. But I don't think hate fixes anything. It just makes more hurt. She climbed onto the couch beside him. Everyone deserves a second chance. Even grown-ups. That broke him completely. He bent forward, shoulders shaking with sobs he'd held back for 24 years. Grief for his sister. Guilt for Lily's parents. Shame for every cold decision, every time he'd chosen profit over people, every wall he'd built that kept him safe and alone. Lily wrapped her small arms around him, the way Theo hugged her when she had nightmares. She didn't say anything else. Just held on while he finally let himself grieve. When his sobs quieted, she pulled back and looked at him seriously. That lady, the one who told Theo about you. She wants him to go to a press thing tomorrow. To say bad stuff about you. Damon wiped his eyes. I know. I deserve whatever she says. But what if there's a better way? What if instead of just punishing you, we could make sure no one else's parents die like mine did? He stared at her. What are you saying? I don't know exactly. But punishing you doesn't help other kids. Making sure construction sites are safe does. Right. Out of the mouths of babes. This child had just articulated what he'd been too broken to see, that true justice wasn't about revenge. It was about prevention. You're right, he said softly. You're absolutely right. They talked through the night. Not about blame or guilt, but about what could be done. What should be done. By the time Theo burst through the door at 3 a.m., frantic and furious, they had the bones of a plan. Lily, what were you thinking? Theo grabbed her, checking her over. You can't just run off in the middle of the night. Do you have any idea? He stopped, seeing her tear-stained face, then Damon's. What happened? We talked, Lily said simply. And I think we figured out what justice means. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. at the Grand Hotel. By 9:30 the lobby was packed with reporters, cameras, curiosity seekers. Victoria Kane stood at a podium, victory written across her face. Finally, after 5 years, she would destroy Damon Pierce. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming, she began. Today I will reveal evidence of corporate negligence, cover-ups, and the exploitation of tragedy by one of this city's most prominent businessmen. The doors opened. Damon walked in, flanked by his legal team. The room erupted in whispers and camera flashes. Victoria's smile widened. How gracious of Mr. Pierce to join us. Ready to confess, Damon? Actually, yes. He walked to the podium. May I speak first? Victoria hesitated. This wasn't part of her plan. But refusing would look petty. By all means. Damon took the microphone. His hands shook slightly, but his voice was steady. 2 years ago, my company was responsible for a construction accident that killed 2 people, Isabel and Carlos Reyes. The accident was caused by safety violations that I was aware of and chose to ignore in favor of profit margins. I covered up evidence, paid minimal settlement, and moved on without a second thought. He paused, letting that sink in. I am guilty of corporate negligence. Of valuing money over human lives. And I'm prepared to face the legal consequences of those decisions. The room exploded. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Victoria stood frozen, not expecting full confession. Then the doors opened again. Theo walked in, holding Lily's hand. The room quieted, sensing drama. Theo walked to the podium. Damon stepped aside. "My name is Theodore Reyes. Isabel and Carlos were my parents." He pulled out the documents Victoria had shown him. "Everything Mr. Pierce just said is true. His company killed my parents. He covered it up. And when he found out who we were, he didn't tell us." Victoria's smile returned. "This was more like it. But today," Theo continued, "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for truth. The truth is that Damon Pierce made terrible decisions that destroyed my family. The truth is also that when faced with his mistakes, he didn't run or hide. He tried to make things right. Not in the way I would have chosen. Not perfectly. But genuinely." He looked at Damon. "Justice isn't just punishment. It's making sure what happened to my family never happens to anyone else. So today, we're announcing the establishment of the Isabel and Carlos Reyes Construction Safety Foundation. Funded entirely by Mr. Pierce's personal wealth, not company money, this foundation will provide free safety audits, training, and support to construction sites across the country. It will advocate for stronger regulations. It will hold companies accountable." Reporters scribbled frantically. This wasn't the story they'd expected. "My parents died because someone chose money over safety. This foundation will fight to make sure no other family gets that call. That's justice. Not revenge disguised as righteousness." He looked directly at Victoria. "And, unlike some people, we're actually trying to fix the problem instead of just destroying people for personal satisfaction." Victoria's face went red. "You don't know what you're talking about. Damon Pierce destroyed my father." "Your father destroyed himself." Marcus Chin stepped forward, holding a tablet. "I've been investigating the Kane Industries collapse. Your father was embezzling funds, falsifying reports, and violating safety codes long before Mr. Pierce's company acquired the remains. In fact, here are OSHA reports showing your current company has 17 active violations. You've been projecting your family's guilt onto someone else while committing the same sins." The media turned on Victoria like sharks scenting blood. She stammered, tried to spin, but the evidence was damning. Her press conference had become her own exposure. She gathered her papers and fled through a side door, her righteous crusade crumbling to dust. Damon returned to the microphone. "I can't undo my mistakes. I can't bring back the people my negligence killed. But I can dedicate my life to making sure it never happens again. The foundation will be operational within a month. Every dollar I have will go toward making construction sites safe. Toward valuing human lives over profit. Toward becoming the person I should have been all along." He looked at Lily and Theo. "These two taught me that redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about building a better future. I don't deserve their forgiveness. But I'll spend my life trying to earn it." The press conference ended. Questions shouted, but Damon, Theo, and Lily walked out together. Outside in the sunlight, Lily squeezed both their hands. "We did good, right?" "Yeah, Lil," Theo said softly. "We did good." 6 months later the city had changed. Small ways mostly, but meaningful ones. The Isabel and Carlos Reyes Foundation had conducted safety audits on 200 construction sites, identifying and correcting violations that could have killed workers. 3 new safety regulations had passed, named in honor of the Reyes family. Damon's company had become an industry leader in worker protection, despite the profit impact. Theo had been promoted to director of foundation operations. He discovered he had a talent for management, for organizing complex systems, for making sure resources went where they do the most good. The exhaustion had faded from his face, replaced by purpose. Lily was in a better school now, one where field trips were possible and lunches were included. She joined the chess club and the art club and made friends who invited her to birthday parties. She still saved coins in a jar, but now it was for fun things instead of survival. And Damon visited their apartment every Sunday for dinner. The first few times had been awkward, all of them dancing around the history. But slowly, impossibly, they'd found a rhythm. He'd teach Lily business concepts through games. She'd teach him that feelings weren't weakness. Theo would cook while Damon cleaned up, and they'd talk about the foundation, about the future, about things that mattered. Lily had started calling him Uncle Damon. The first time she did it, he'd frozen, emotion overwhelming him. Now he answered to it naturally, grateful for the title he'd never thought he'd deserve. On a bright Sunday afternoon, Damon drove them to a cemetery on the edge of the city. They talked about this for weeks. Lily had asked to visit his sister's grave, wanted to meet the other Lily who'd inspired so much grief and change. They walked through rows of headstones until Damon stopped at a small marker. Lily Pierce. Beloved daughter and sister. For years of joy. Hi, Lily said softly, kneeling by the stone. She'd brought flowers, daisies bright and cheerful. My name's Lily too. Your brother talks about you a lot. He says you like to draw pictures. Me too. She placed the flowers carefully. He made some mistakes after you died. Really big ones. But he's trying to be better now. I think you'd be proud of him. Damon couldn't speak. Tears ran down his face unchecked. She would be proud, Theo said quietly. You're not the same person who made those choices. Damon looked at him. At this young man who'd had every right to hate him, who'd chosen understanding instead. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank us. Just keep being better. Keep making sure other families don't break like ours did. They stood together in the cemetery, 3 people connected by tragedy and transformed by forgiveness. The ice that had encased Damon's heart for 24 years had finally melted completely, leaving him raw and vulnerable and able to feel again. It hurt. God, it hurt. But it also felt like coming home. 2 weeks later, an envelope arrived at Theo's apartment. Official letterhead from social services. His hands shook as he opened it. Permanent custody granted. Case closed. Stability and financial security confirmed. Theodore Reyes is hereby recognized as legal guardian of Lily Reyes. He'd done it. Against every odd, despite every obstacle, he'd kept his promise. They were safe. They were together. They were okay. That night they celebrated. Damon brought champagne for the adults and sparkling cider for Lily. Mrs. Chin came up with a cake. Marcus stopped by with congratulations. Even Mia and her parents visited, Mia vibrant and healthy and living proof that good things could still happen. In the middle of the celebration, Damon pulled Theo aside. Can we talk? Privately? They stepped into the hallway. Damon looked nervous, an expression Theo had never seen on him before. I have something to ask you. It's unconventional and you can absolutely say no, but he pulled papers from his jacket. Adoption papers. For both of you. Theo's breath caught. Not to replace your parents, Damon said quickly. Nothing could ever do that. But to honor them. To make sure you and Lily always have security, always have family, always have someone in your corner. Legal co-guardianship. You'd still be her primary guardian, but I'd have legal rights to help, to support too. He stopped, swallowed hard. Let me be the family you deserve. Let me finally do something right. Theo looked at the papers. At this man who'd killed his parents and then spent 6 months trying to save their children. Who'd transformed from Ice King to someone capable of love. Who'd proven that people could change if they wanted it badly enough. Our parents would want Lily to have every advantage, Theo said slowly. Would want her to be safe and loved and have opportunities. They'd want that for both of us. He met Damon's eyes. But this isn't just about what they'd want. It's about what we want. And I think we want you to be part of our family. Damon's face crumpled. You mean it? We're already doing family dinners and holidays. Might as well make it official. Theo managed a smile. Besides, Lily would never forgive me if I said no. They went back inside. When Damon told Lily about the adoption papers, she launched herself at him, wrapping her arms around his neck. Does this mean I get to keep both of you forever? She asked. If that's what you want, Damon said, voice thick with emotion. That's what I want. A family. All of us together. Theo joined the hug, the 3 of them holding on tight. 3 broken pieces that had somehow formed something whole. Something beautiful. Something that felt like home. 1 year later, the new Children's Hospital wing opened. State-of-the-art facilities, completely free care for families who couldn't afford treatment. The Isabel and Carlos Reyes Memorial Wing. Damon stood at the podium looking out at the crowd. Reporters, hospital staff, families who'd already been helped by the foundation, and in the front row, Theo and Lily, his family. A little over a year ago, he began, a young girl chased my car through a storm. She was desperate, terrified, and brave beyond measure. She believed I could help, even when I'd spent years proving I cared about nothing but profit. That night changed my life. It broke me open and forced me to confront the person I'd become. He paused, emotions threatening to overwhelm him. My little sister died when I was 8 years old. I spent 24 years running from that grief, building walls, refusing to feel anything. Then Lily Reyes showed me that sometimes the people who save us are the ones we save first. He gestured to the memorial plaque beside the entrance. Isabel and Carlos's names, etched in bronze. This wing honors 2 people who died because of my negligence. I can't bring them back. But I can make sure their death meant something. That it created change. That other families don't have to suffer what the Reyes family has suffered. He looked directly at Theo and Lily. Thank you for teaching me about justice, forgiveness, and second chances. Thank you for showing me that redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about building a better future. Thank you for being my family." The crowd applauded. The ribbon was cut. Children flooded into the new wing, their laughter and hope filling spaces that had been built from grief but would house healing. Later, as the crowd dispersed, a small boy approached Damon. Maybe 6 years old, clutching his mother's hand. "Excuse me, sir?" The boy's voice was shy. "My friend is really sick. Can you help?" Damon didn't hesitate. He knelt down to the child's level, looking him in the eyes with complete attention. "Tell me about your friend." As the boy explained, Lily and Theo watched from nearby. Theo smiled. "He's really changed, hasn't he?" "People can change," Lily said wisely. "If they want to. If someone believes in them." "You believed in him even when I didn't." "That's because I'm smarter than you." She grinned. Theo laughed and pulled her close. They watched as Damon listened to the boy with genuine care, making calls, promising help, being the person he'd learned to be. Around them, the hospital hummed with life. Mia ran past with other kids, completely healthy. Victoria Kane could be seen through a window, doing court-ordered community service hours in the children's ward, learning her own lessons about redemption. Marcus coordinated with hospital staff, making sure everything ran smoothly. This was their family now. Not born of blood, but forged through tragedy and choice and love that grew in unexpected places. Theo's phone buzzed. A photo from Mrs. Chin, their family photo from the hospital opening. Damon, Theo, and Lily standing together, arms around each other, all genuinely smiling. He set it as his lock screen. 1 year ago, Lily had chased a car through the rain. Had believed a stranger would help. Had been brave when everything was falling apart. She'd saved Mia. She'd saved Damon. She'd saved all of them, really. And now, standing in a hospital built from grief and guilt but dedicated to hope and healing, they were whole. Different than before. Scarred. But together. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Or just the beginning. Their journey continues. Will you be here for what comes next?